Yay. Welcome to the living room, 2921 Duff Road, where we're learning how to live healthy, even though we live in a very toxic world. Tonight is a remake of God's Pharmacy, and that would be spelled Farmcy. We're going to hear about the transformations, the changes, and what we're going to be doing to be a part of the good transformation that needs to happen as we return to the original plan that our creator designed for us. Now, I'm going to click up slideshow from start, and I want you to give me a thumbs up if you can see my slides. All righty. Can you see my slides? Can you see my slides? Can somebody tell me, yes, you can see my slides? Great.
It's not showing on this. Oh, there it is.
Let's get rolling then. Let food be thy medicine. So in other words, according to Genesis chapter 1, we're talking about food is a medicine. If we could get that stuck into our mind, we would actually be on the right track. Because if food is a medicine, then if I was an enemy to the great creator, and I didn't like his creation, then the first place that I would try to, let's say, poison would be their food. Wouldn't you say that? Yeah. The first place that I would want to poison would be their food source, because the creator said that food is your medicine. So, okay, so if I was an enemy, the first thing I would do would be to poison your food. So let's go down that railroad track and see what has happened. What's going on with our food? And we're going to learn about what has happened to our farming practices, what has happened, why is it that we're in trouble and food no longer is actually giving us the health benefits that our original creator designed, and why is it that we need to help and to bridge the gap. Food. What happened to the American farmer? You see, 98% of Americans 100 years ago were farmers. Guess what? Today, less than 2% are farmers. And most of those 2% actually work for big corporations. So in other words, they have to farm according to how the corporations tell them to farm. So they're actual slaves to the corporations. And I have family members that run huge farms in the Midwest, and I've had some very heated discussions about this subject. And 5 years ago, the last time I was in Missouri, my cousin who farms for Monsanto, Bayer now, said, Lavon, I'm surprised with your attitudes. They allowed you across the state line. Oh my goodness. Just how many here remember picking food from a garden? Anybody remember picking food from a garden? I asked this question one time when I did a class for Florida State University. And I went down to Sarasota to their culinary class, and they let me speak for 2 mornings. And I asked that question, how many in the room has ever picked a tomato? Nobody. How many here has ever picked a strawberry? Nobody raised their hands. I was like in shock. I couldn't believe that they were like, you're kidding me. You are taking a culinary class. You're the future chefs of America. And yet you've never bonded with nature, in the sense that you've never even grown a strawberry or picked a strawberry off a plant or picked a tomato off of a plant. No. So ask your grandkids, where does food come from? Store. And they'll say the store. They'll say, if you're a local Publix store, oh, Publix. Yeah, they'll say it comes from my mom in a grocery bag. They're actually clueless about tracing back the origin and the connection that we have with nature about food. How about this? Our food has changed, and we're going to see how much in this presentation on how much it has changed. And then a part that we need to play about shifting it back to the original state. Did anyone here grow up on a farm? Did anybody here grow up on a farm? I didn't grow up on a farm, but I had aunts and relatives that did. And every summer we went to visit them. So they had combines, they raised cotton, soybean, corn, no, they did have a huge garden. I'm talking about Midwest. And yes, eggs, but I do remember visiting my grandmother, and she would go out there and wring the neck of the chickens to fry for dinner. And she would put it in a pot and soak it in salt water. And I was a curious little child, so I would ask the questions. Okay. I would say, okay, Grandma, why is it that you're soaking the chicken that has been freshly killed in a pot with salt in it? And she said, because it helps to drain the blood. And she also said it will tenderize the chicken. And I do remember both of my grandmothers farmed. My father's father, they were farmers, and they grew up in the Midwestern, Southeast Missouri, West Tennessee area. And so it was during the time after World War II that the Dust Bowl was created. And the Dust Bowl actually was created because they didn't know or understand how to farm back then. That you don't strip the land and strip the trees and strip everything and then grow. Eventually, it's going to say this is not a proper way of farming and the way that God intended for us to farm. And then all of a sudden, all winds blow, and all of a sudden the topsoil goes, and then you have a complete dust bowl, and nothing will grow in the dust bowl. So the great gradual switch out from a natural source of farming. How do you think that the Pilgrims, we just celebrated July 4th, how do you think the Pilgrims farmed? They tilled the ground, they planted the seed, and who helped them to accommodate to the weather, to the soil conditions and the weather conditions? Do you remember who helped the Pilgrims? It was the American Indians, right? In specific, and I'm bringing up my homeschooling days here because I read about the story of the Indian named Squanto, and I nicknamed my son Squanto. So I would call him Squanto as we were going through the series of learning about Native Americans and colony pioneer days and everything. But it was the Native Americans that actually helped the Pilgrims to adapt, and they gave them the corn seed and told them that was the seed that was going to propagate and see them through the seasons. And that's what they did. Now, the corn back then is very, very different from the corn today. Very different. So now you see that we have the high technology of drones spraying the fields. We have planes that spray the fields. We have drones that spray the fields. We have automatic spraying. That just seems like, oh, that's just natural, right? But we're going to find out what's happened when farmers then began to adapt the new industries of the new corporations' way of farming practices. Regenerative agriculture shifts the paradigm. So in other words, we got away from it. And let's take a look at, I love parallels because that helps us to see the difference. See, there's a difference when you compete with nature. You see, it's not going to turn out real well with you if you try to compete with nature. I'm just giving you a heads up. Every person in history that has gone against nature, it did not end well. It did not end well. Warning to AI. It did not end well. You disturb the soil. Monoculture, meaning one crop, and they're drilling out many seasons of that one crop instead of alternating the crops. And it results in a reductionist rather than in a proliferation, a multiplication. And in fact, it results in subtraction rather than a multiplication of nutrition. So it's much better to partner with nature. Those a scripture verse in Proverbs talks about, that the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. So if you want to actually be wise, then understand how God created, our creator created nature, and agree with nature. So let's partner with nature, and then let's protect the soil. And then we alternate crops so that one crop will actually feed the soil that will create a richer crop with the next crop. And it's holistic in nature. It's kind of like, as we've shifted our thought from holistic health to from holistic health and holistic farming, it's almost like the same corporations that push the transition push the same transition of the farming that push the same transition of the medical. It happened almost at the same time. So let's take a look. Building better soils. So in other words, we have to get back to building better soils because the soil has been raped. Raped means it's been deprived of its choice, of its will, and it's been stripped of its natural essence, its natural ability to produce on its own. And so holistic farming talks about using a natural compost, growing a cover crop to actually cover the soil so that it doesn't blow away and erode. And then it reduces the amount of pesticides you're going to use. It reduces the amount of tilling you're going to have to do. It reduces all of the bad, negative effects of farming when you honor and partner with nature. There are 7 major practices of sustainable agriculture, and we are delighted to educate. And this is one website that I found. Number 1, getting back to organic farming. And I tell people, find an organic farm in your area and support it that is doing right. I just found a new farm up in Bushnell. That's about 40 minutes from here. And it's a family that lived in downtown Tampa, and God spoke to them and said, get out of Tampa. They have 3 children. Buy this land over there in Bushnell. They did. They've been clearing the land for a year. And when I went there, I bought their very first chickens they harvested, and I've already cooked one. It was delicious. And they have goats, and they have ducks, and they have chickens. And now they're I see them on Facebook, and they're telling how they are raising the chickens and offering the chickens and the eggs. And they're going to have other produce and other things that they're going to be able to offer. Crop rotation, mulching, integrated farming. That means being able to actually alternate the crops. Integrated crop management. So in other words, this is going to help with the things that actually is going to lower the levels of pesticides that are going to attack the plant, because you have like marigolds. They plant marigolds around a garden for a reason, because it is a toxic plant that actually wards off a lot of the pests that will come in and attack and eat your crops. Integrated pest management and integrated nutrient management. So there are certain crops that actually oxygenate the soil and put the nutrients back into the soil so that the soil can actually generate and percolate its own microbial world, because there is a complete and total microbial world within the soil. And that soil has to maintain its balance. And when its balance is upset, it usually takes about 7 years to return a corporate engineered crop to an organic crop soil. Usually takes 7 years to turn that over. Back to Eden is a documentary I've shown in here. I recommend highly for everyone to watch that documentary. I love that documentary. I could watch it over and over again because I rank it kind of up there with Faith Like Potatoes, you know, that movie. It's because it's the gentleman that listened to the voice of God about how to farm, and he blew the minds of all the agricultural professors from universities from all over the world, and they came to see his garden because they didn't believe it was possible, and they were just blown away by all the beautiful things that this man was able to grow because he honored nature. He partnered with nature. Wow, farming is good, but because we left partnership with nature and we began to do it our way, you know, scripture verse says there's a way that seems to be right unto a man, but the end will result in subtraction, division, and deficit, and even dishonor against God and against creation and nature. So there's been 84,000 toxic chemicals that's been exposed or released into our environment. 2,100 in our drinking water, 150 at the gas pump, 4,000 toxins in secondhand cigarette smoke. There are poisons and toxins in our air, our water, and food. I love this little, you know, when you go to the Chinese restaurant and you open up your little cookie here and it says you just ate poison coming out of a cookie. If someone poisoned my food, water, or air, would they go to jail? Well, absolutely. But when corporations do it, they're actually praised, protected with high dollar lobbyists. Oh, by the way, I've got some of my cake that I made. If anybody wants any of my little cake, chocolate cake up here. But they get away with it because they buy the politicians to protect them, and they do a lot of lobbying, and they actually have the most power as lobbyists in the White House. And so let's talk about what do these stickers mean when you go into the produce department, because when you look up at, let's say, Publix is our resource center where we go to get it'll say that a lot of our produce in our produce department has been coated with a wax-based protective coating. And then it'll say, but don't worry about it because this coating is, what does it say? It says that it is food-based wax or food-based petroleum. So I don't know about you, but there is no amount of petroleum that can be counted as okay to consume. It's a level of toxin, and then they decide to actually grant it as a source to protect the produce. And we're going to talk about the new appeal in a moment. But I want you to see that if it's a 3 or 4, if the PLU starts with a 3 or 4, that just simply means it's been conventionally grown and probably using chemical fertilizers, systemic insecticides, herbicides were probably used. Not necessarily, but probably. This is why I tell people get to know their local farmer, get to know their grower, go to the produce stand, go to the farmer's market, get to know where they get their produce from. There used to be a farm right down here on Kathleen Road. I don't know if y'all remember that, but I used to go down there. It was a family from up north that came here, and oh my word, I went in there and I asked to see their fertilizer. And I pulled up their bag of fertilizer to actually see how they were fertilizing their kale and their tomatoes and all of those things. And I asked to see what they were feeding their chickens. And she showed it all to me, and it was all great and wonderful. It was awesome. Yeah, she did. If the number starts with an 8, though, we say hate 8 because that was the controversy, is how we're going to label genetically modified organisms, because they've decided to put a number 8, but it wasn't mandatory. So a corporation didn't have to put an 8 there if they didn't want to put an 8 there. And if you knew the difference between a 3 and 4 and an 8 and a 9, you would know to hate 8. And that number 9 was fine, because number 9, if the PLU starts with the number 9, it means it has been organically grown. So that number 1 means that they cannot systemically put a poison within the plant itself, the plant fiber or the content of the peach or the celery or the radish or the potato. It means it's been topically sprayed on it, which means you can wash it off with our green. But if it's a 3 or 4, it could possibly be sprayed with a systemic poison, let's say put in the water supply and then watered that way, and then drawn up from the root system through the branches and out through the produce. And this is, we'll talk about the clean 15 and dirty dozen in just a minute. But this kind of gives you a bit of a guideline of a 3, a 4, a 9, or an 8. And then here is, you're going to ask, I know you're going to ask, well, where's these numbers from? Every single produce has an individual sticker on it, right? And you can see on this individual sticker, you can actually see that it's going to have the very first number. It's going to be a 4. Do you see the 4, a Chiquita 4? And how about the Gala small apple starts with a 9, right? And 9 is fine, 4 and 3. And remember, you see the product of chili starting with an 8. And some of the genetically modified foods are usually pineapples, papayas. Those are some of the major genetically modified foods that are coming out of South America. So again, starting with an 8, hate, 9, fine, 3 or 4, it can be okay according to the clean 15 and the dirty dozen, which we'll take a look at in just a moment. So now you say, LaVon, what about this new appeal that Mr. Billy Goat Gates has put out? Well, he brags about its purified mono and diglycerides. Like it's kind of like we're going to purify a petroleum and put it in your food, but it's going to be good for you because it's purified. Now, can you purify gasoline enough to consume it? Okay. A food ingredient that is found in a variety of foods. Mono and diglycerides are the go-to replacement for deadly trans fats today, and a food industry staple that helps keep oil and fat from separating. So this is why the industry actually introduced this, because, you know, oil and water don't mix. And so they wanted this bad oil to mix with these other bad ingredients that were in your cookies and your crackers and in your donuts and all the other fast foods, breads and things like that. So they decided to create something from a chemical. Okay, mono and diglycerides. Processing, including partially hydrogenated canola and soybean oils and artificial trans fats, a danger food ingredient known to cause coronary heart disease and lead to 50,000 fatal heart attacks a year. Now that's our new appeal. So they tell you, do not accept this as an organic, even though they got it approved under the organic as an organic approval. And I got a call the other day from somebody who bought a bunch of broccoli from Aldi's, and it was organic. And she called me in a panic because it was organic, but the green we were using and been taught to use was not working to break down the barrier. And she was like, I'm in shock. The green has worked for all these years, and now all of a sudden it doesn't work. So I said to her, go get the LDC, the light duty cleaner, And I said, dilute it 5-to-1 and spray directly on it. And she did, and it worked. But she tried several times with green, and it didn't break down whatever they sealed that broccoli with, that organic broccoli. The green didn't break through it. So just beware. You may have to shift over and start using the LDC to wash your fruits and vegetables, as they are creating more monstrosities to coat our fruits and vegetables with. So I'm going to be testing out this oat peel. Of course, most of your oat peel is going to be on avocados. They got approved for avocados. So what do these have in common? All right. How about our bread? Bread and flip-flops. What does bread have in common with flip-flops? Well, flip-flops have been used by Subway to make the bread. The name of the chemical is ADA. And in the plastic industry, ADA is a chemical foaming agent that allows that bread to rise and get all foamy and spongy. It is a mixture of polymers, plastic gels to generate tiny bubbles, materials that are strong, light, spongy, malleable. This is why when you go to the store and you buy a loaf of bread and it's nice and bouncy and spongy, and 6 months later, it's nice and bouncy and spongy. And a year later, it's still nice and bouncy and spongy, because you could actually wear them as flip-flops. A slice of bread. According to the new EWG, over 80,000 foods now under development of using ADA turns up in nearly 500 items and in more than 130 brands of breads, bread stuffing, snacks, including many advertised as healthy. So you have to really be cautious and careful. Publix was actually noted as using this ADA, and Publix did send out an advertisement stating that they were going to stop using it. But Subway was the very first company that they went in and tested and found this ADA, and were shocked to discover it in over 500 different brands, including Publix. Headlines on the French rat study talking about genetically modified organisms. This was something that came out a few years ago. They tried to debunk it, and then they came back and said, oh no, this French study was done authentically. It was done according to your standard research documentation. It will stand firm in a court of law. And they did. And what they shocking findings was that if a rat ate genetically modified corn over the course of its lifetime, that it created in 70% of the females breast tumors, and in the males prostate tumors. Rats that drank trace amounts of Roundup also had 200 to 300% increase in large tumors. So in other words, if you're not just getting one of these toxins, but a mixture of these toxins, and most all of these crops are Roundup ready crops to begin with, then all of a sudden you increase your susceptibility to cancer by 200 and 300 and 400%. And this is why we're sitting in America today, 1 out of 2, boom, has cancer. 1 out of 2, 1 out of 2, 1 out of 2, 1 out of 2. It used to be 1 out of 3. Used to be 1 out of 5. Used to be 1 out of 50. Used to be 1 out of 1,000. Used to be 1 out of 10,000. Folks, we're creating our own demise and disaster. So this is the actual picture of the rat study that was done out of the French study that was done, showing, and they allowed Monsanto to do and submit their own study to be approved, and according to lobbyists to say that genetically modified foods were safe, but they only fed the rats for a few short weeks the genetically modified corn. French decided to feed it a longer period of time. So in other words, a lot of studies that are done that they deem safe is because they stopped the study just before the manifestation. Do you get the picture going on here? They stopped the study just before the manifestation. So what's the big deal over genetically modified organisms? Well, here is your label that became very, very popular about 6 years ago, where everybody was labeling non-GMO, 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 because it became one of the most popular seals in America to be non-GMO. So proud to be non-GMO. What are GMO? Genetically engineered foods is a plant or meat product that has had its DNA artificially altered in a laboratory by genetics from plants, animals, viruses, and bacteria in order to produce foreign compounds in that food. What? Genetically alterations is not found in nature naturally. So again, you're not partnering with nature. You're actually going against nature. Remember, it is not nice to go against Mother Nature. We don't know which ones without labeling the chemical and junk food companies don't want you to know what you're eating. And it's a long story that went through when they tried to get the labeling done. And they actually went through, did this in California. They signed the petitions. They lobbied Washington, D.C. It was during the one of the administrations. I'm being recorded, so I'm not going to say, but they actually passed the law stating that they were not going to label it GMO because you as an American citizen is too ignorant to understand, and it would confuse you. Sheeples. Really? Go look at it. Go look it up. That's exactly what they tell you. So I call it chimeric foods, and chimeric means in scripture, it talks about chimeras. And in Genesis 1, it says, do not mix the seed, do not mix the kind. So chimeric comes from the term that you're mixing the kind, meaning you're mixing a seed of a tomato with a seed of a fish, with a seed of a virus, with a seed of a bacteria, with a seed of an insect, and calling it a tomato. Really? Yes, real quick.
Yes, I forget the name of that act. Was it the Dark Act? Or was
It was called the Dark Act.
Okay.
Yes, I can say that much. Yes, it was called the Dark Act. You're right. A few years ago, there were 16 countries that had a total of partial bans on genetically modified organisms. Now there are at least 26, including Switzerland, Australia, China, India, France, Germany, Hungary, Luxembourg, Greece, Bulgaria, Poland, Italy, and so on, and Russia. Well, what do they know that we need to know? You know, why is it that they actually are saying we're banning this? And I remember when I went to Africa 5 years ago, and I remember that we went through the border into Swaziland. And when we left South Africa and crossed over into the border of Swaziland, and I took pictures of all this, it said in big, huge, bold letters as we were giving them our passport to get through, it said, if you are caught bringing genetically modified seed into my country, you will be arrested as a terrorist. And I thought, oh my, what does this king know that all the other leaders of South Africa don't know? And I got the answer. And the answer was that that king was educated from Oxford University, and that he was a great businessman, and that he grew over 60% of the original sugar cane for the Coca-Cola Corporation that had the original recipe for Europe and Mexico that does not allow their genetically modified corn syrup to be put in their recipe. So he was a good businessman. And he knew that, again, what does the scripture say? A little leaven leavens the whole lump. So that's kind of how genetically modified seeds act. If you let one loose, oh my goodness, it's like a riot in the fields. Wow. So then say no to GMO. So America did say, okay, we don't like this GMO business going on here. We want clearer understanding of labels going on here. So GMOs, what if they found out over the past 30 years that they've been giving us genetically modified organisms that disrupts the precise sequence of a food's genetic code and disturbs the functioning of neighboring genes? So in other words, they're saying we're only making this one genetic transaction. But you see, that is a singularity approach, not a holistic approach. So they don't understand that one gene affects another gene, that one DNA alteration affects the neighboring genetics. And so they now realized, oh my goodness, it actually affects all the neighboring genetics, which can give rise to potentially toxic or allergenic molecules, or even alter the nutritional value of food produced. And this is why when Dr. Arthur First went to Washington, D.C. as a world leading toxicologist, and he was asked to give his report on the up and coming release of genetically modified foods. And he said, show me the proof that it does not alter the other genetics and that it does not take away from the nutritional value of the food. And they said, we don't care about any of that. All we care about is one plant can now produce not 4 tomatoes, but 6 tomatoes or 10 tomatoes. And he said he would not agree with it because he saw then that it was going to be just shamrocked through without any real science to back it up. So now we have Bt toxins in our corn. Now, how did we get Bt toxins? Well, you see, when they spray and spray and spray and spray, and then you can't really spray anymore because everything's saturated so much spray. And then they want to pass a law saying you got to spray less. And then so the scientists go to work and they say, well, what we'll do is we'll actually put the toxin genetically inside the corn. And it's called Bt corn. So in other words, the actual seed itself is sterile. It's a dead seed. If you haven't seen the documentary Seeds of Death, please see Seeds of Death. And then they put the poison directly in the corn genetically. So when they go in and spray it with Roundup, the corn doesn't die because the corn has the pesticide. The pesticide already in the corn as a resistance. Also, corn is genetically modified with rat DNA. So I kind of laughed at all these vegans that walk around and eat lots of corn because they're eating rat DNA. And they discovered that rats that eat corn detect their own cousins and sisters and brothers, so they won't eat it. And so they could stockpile it in silos and transport it without rats eating it because rats detect their own family DNA in the corn. Oh, my. So Bt corn, toxins used genetically modified, for example, was recently detected in the blood of pregnant. Now we have so much Bt corn that it's detected in the breast milk and the umbilical cord of babies. May have a toxic or lethal impact on other living things. Thus, it was found that Bt corn destroys the larva of the monarch butterfly. So in other words, you're seeing that, oh my goodness, when you negatively affect one area of nature, it actually bumps negatively. It's kind of like a cell that's lost its electron. And when a cell's lost its electron, it bumps and agitates the next cell saying, give me yours, give me yours, give me yours, give me more, give me yours. Then you have a riot on a university, college campus or in front of the White House, you have a riot. And so what's happened here is now they're discovering that butterflies, monarch butterflies, are actually dying because of being exposed to this BT corn. Wow. So disrupt the life cycle of the bees, bats, butterflies, and bugs. This is part of your barometer to know what is happening here, because nature, we're no longer partnering with nature, but we're going against nature, and nature's not liking it. And all of a sudden you're destroying the very fabric of our nature. And what is it? Bees, bats, butterflies, and bugs, they serve a purpose. And they're the ones that germinate the seed. They germinate the plants. And there's no substantial evidence exists that genetically modified crops yield more than conventional crops. What genetically engineered crops definitely do is they lead to is greater use of pesticides. So in other words, they sold it to us. They sold it to the farmers to saying it'll use less pesticides. Well, it's the great lie. Remember, it was Ronald Reagan that says if the government comes to you and says, I have a solution for you, and I'm here to help you with this problem, run, because they're the ones that actually propagated the problem to begin with. And the fruit is in other words. So this has been happening to close to over 30 years. The fruit is in, the cycles that have been propagated. They're now realizing they've done the tests, they've done the research, that it's caused farmers to actually use more pesticides than ever before. And now all of a sudden you have pesticide-laden soils, you have pesticide-laden foods, you have pesticide-laden people, you got pesticide-laden babies, you got pesticide-laden butterflies and bees. GMO seeds reinforce a model of farming that undermines sustainability of cash poor farmers who make up most of the world's hungry. Genetically modified seeds can continue farmers' dependency on purchased seeds and chemical inputs. All it did was make the big corporations richer. That's all it's done. The only profit has been made with the big corporations because the farmers getting less and less of their produce profit. So the most dramatic impact of such dependency is in India, where 270,000 farmers, many trapped in their debt for buying these seeds because America came in and deceived them. They committed suicide between 1995 and 2012, and there's documentaries out there that talk about this. Why you shouldn't eat genetically modified corn. Effects of genetically modified corn is similar to that of pesticides, including inflammation in the body, your organs, your kidneys, your liver, heightened risk of cancer, digestive, bloating, leaky gut, toxic overload, chronic inflammation, skin problems, acne, blemishes, infertility, mucus buildup in the linings of your intestines, your sinuses, your breathing, your lungs, and it blocks vitamin and mineral absorption. What? It blocks vitamin and mineral absorption? Yes. Oh, my. And these are some of the crops that you'll find is papaya, bananas, apples, corn, strawberries. I was doing a meeting a few years back in a home right down the road from here and talking about this, and a lady about jumped off the sofa and she said, I'm dating a guy who is a big strawberry farmer in Plant City. And she said, and I went to a party with him the other night with some of the other strawberry growers, and they were all bragging about this new genetically modified strawberry seed and that it was crossed with swine, a pig. And she was like, oh, my. And I thought, this is strange. But they were all happy because it was going to produce a bigger, plumper, juicier, and it would last longer in the transit time from picking it to actually the processing plant and buying it. This is one reason why you have to buy strawberries organically, by the way. Yes, yes, yes. So this is the same corn that is in corn-based breakfast cereals, corn tortillas, corn snacks, corn chips. China returned 100 million tons to the USA because they said, we don't want your genetically modified corn. So in other words, when they're coming over the border from Mexico, and on the other side of the border, they're getting non-GMO tortillas, and then they come on over the border and they diet do not change, but they're getting genetically modified corn tortillas. And all of a sudden the cancer rates rise, the diabetes rises, the blood pressure, you know, the metabolic syndromes rise amongst the Hispanics because of this. And, you know, it's up to us to tell them why. Oh, my goodness, here's a reason why. So again, the sweet corn and the feed corn, both at this point have been genetically modified. So if you do corn at all, make sure it has the seal, organic, authentic seal. When I went to Georgia the last time, I talked with a farmer. I'm friends with a farmer up there, and he sells his produce in the market, and he tells me he's reserved several pieces of acres of land where he grows sweet corn that is not genetically modified, and he sells it in the market square. So you just have to ask, and you have to know, get to know your farmer. Now you've got no longer the GMO. That's old news. Did you know that GMO is now no longer the big thing? Genetically modified, it's now bioengineered. Now you're going to read on a label, oh my goodness, this cereal, these cookies, this whatever it boxed or canned has bioengineered, is bioengineered. So what the world is bioengineered? Well, bioengineered is no longer the actual genetically modified, where they take a DNA, let's say out of a pig, and insert it into a strawberry. They're actually taking the strawberry, and they're called CRISPR engineering, where they're snipping and then inserting and then snipping and inserting into the DNA line. So they're actually doing more with virus and bacteria and fungus now than ever before. And the bioengineered now includes the whole gamut of fungus, bacteria, virus, animal, insect, and human DNA, and artificial nanotechnology. I'm not going to get into that this class, but that is all under the bioengineered label. So beware of it. Notice how it has this beautiful sunshine and a leaf. They just want you to feel warm fuzzies when you see this label. And when you see it on a label, beware that you know, if this is something, whether or not you want to put it in your body or not. Then now you have glyphosate, which is a version of Agent Orange, because I'll give you an example. Soy, as it's grown, genetically modified soy, and it's sprayed no less than 4 times with glyphosate before it's harvested. So when somebody says to me, oh, soy is evil or bad, I say, well, I agree with you if it's genetically modified soy that's been sprayed 4 times with glyphosate before it's been harvested. Yes. But now the lawsuits are in, the fruit is in on glyphosate. And glyphosate is known as, Dr. Seneff she's written books on this subject. She's one of the world experts on this subject, a senior research scientist at MIT, computer scientist, of artificial intelligence laboratory, has been studying the long-term effects of glyphosate on humans. the use of Roundup and glyphosate, a gigantic experiment that has been going on for 40 solid years on Americans. So how in the world do you detox from glyphosate? Because everybody's been exposed. It's not an option. We are don't live in a bubble, so we have to detox. One of the great ways of detoxing is cruciferous, neolife cruciferous. Who'd ever thunk that the neolife cruciferous would be a good way to detox? Because it is a sulfur vegetable. Garlic is a sulfur vegetable. Broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, radishes, all of these are wonderful sulfur type vegetables that actually help. Let's see here. I'm trying to, okay, let somebody in here. That actually block glyphosate and chelate glyphosate out of the body is sulfur vegetables. And that's why I love our cruciferous, because of that. And 1 tablet of neolife cruciferous, you would have to consume 11 cabbages. Did you hear what I just said? 1 tablet of cruciferous, you would have to consume 11 cabbages. So it's sprayed mainly on corn, canola, and cotton. And so corn and also parsley, cilantro, and basil is also a good way to detox. This is why I like to make a lot of dishes, pico de gallo and guacamole with fresh cilantro, fresh parsley. This is one of the things Hispanic have going for them, is they eat daily a lot of cilantro and a lot of parsley and a lot of fresh things like basil. I grow some of these things and I go out in my dishes and I have a little bit almost every single day because it is great liver detoxes. But glyphosate is known to cause cancer in the lawsuits that they have won against the state of California for spraying Roundup. It is a hormone disruptor. It is a gut disruptor. It is connected to leaky gut. It is connected to gluten sensitivity. It's connected to autism. It's connected to ADD. It's connected to a lot of things. And Dr. Seneff has documented all of this in her research. Glyphosate destroys the gut bacteria essential to immune function. Remember, 70% of your immunity is sitting in the lining of your gut. And it actually, she has pinpointed it. Dr. Seneff's been the first one to actually trace the glyphosate and what it does in the body and what it actually does inside the gut. And she saw that it actually upsets the pathway shikimate. I'm not going to speak in tongues here, but it's a shikimate pathway that it actually disrupts, so that the gut bacteria is not happy. And if your gut bacteria is not happy, your immune system's not happy. Wow, so much more dangerous than originally believed. Why lab-grown meat? Now they're trying to sell us on lab-grown meat. Oh my goodness. I looked at a lot of this research comes out of the Tavistock Institute, and which is a think tank for the big bankers on how they can engineer the economy and engineer cultures in nations. And so they actually have done research to show that people who have reduced levels of protein have reduced levels of thinking skills and are not strong as warriors or powerful thinkers and powerful movers and motivators, initiators, leaders. And this is all part of their military think tank, that if you deprive a nation or a people that you want to take down, one of the things they do is they take their protein from them. Now, sarcopenia has become a major problem amongst people who are over the age of 40. And what have we got a great move of? If you're on and you hear this and you're vegetarian, God bless you, but you still need some sources of protein that you cannot get through beans and rice. You're going to have to get it through a meat type source. And it's so funny because I've taken a look at all these supplements that they sell these vegetarians and vegans of this omega that is supposed to come from a plant, right? And then I found out that it was genetically modified with a fish. So they're taking what they consider to be a vegan or vegetarian omega, but it was genetically modified with a fish. Does that make sense? No. So additives, how can you actually, how can you create a substance artificially, because you're denying the people, villainizing meat, so you can sell them your synthetically altered version of meat. So here you've got potato starch, cultured dextrose, which is sugar, which contributes to high blood pressure and candida overgrowth. Again, you're upsetting the gut bacteria. Corn, it's full of this genetically modified corn. 90% of the U.S. grown corn is GMO and can be contributed to leaky gut and immune dysfunction, gluten intolerance, binding agents. Wheat gluten causes damage and leaky gut. Legumes, that sounds good. But they cross-react with the gluten, causing more inflammation. And the soy is genetically modified soy that's been sprayed with Roundup. So what have you got with this Impossible Burger? You've got an Impossible Burger that is possibly going to drive disease inside your gut, starting with your gut. Now, who's going to make all the money on this lab-made meat? Okay, it's going to be Billy Goat Gates. That's right. So let's take a look at how many poisons in one bag of Cheetos. I don't know about you, but I used to love them things before I knew any better and got saved. So trans fats, Schumann's fats, here's what you really need to know to avoid. So you've got vegetable oil with a genetically modified soy, and you got maltodextrin, genetically modified corn. You've got MSG, oh my goodness, which is a neurotoxin. You got disodium phosphate, which is what they put in popcorn, a chemical that when they tested the people who were actually making these chemicals that they put in popcorn to like give them that cheese flavor, they were getting cancer at an alarming rate, and they traced it back to this ingredient, disodium phosphate right here. Then you have enriched cornmeal from GMO corn. So in other words, at every bite of Cheetos, it's going to excite your excitotoxins because they're full of neurotransmitters, excitotoxin chemicals, but it's going to reach your gut and it's going to disrupt all of your gut bacteria. Lactic acid, citric acid, sour cream comes from cultured cream, non-fat, partially hydrogenated soy, artificial colors, artificial flavors, and we think nothing about giving our children a bag of this every single day. And how about 10 genetically modified ingredients in every single one of these favorite candies that you're eating and consuming? Sugar, high fructose corn syrup, cornstarch, soy lecithin. There's nothing wrong with soy lecithin if it's not genetically modified. There's nothing wrong with soybean oil as long as it's not genetically modified. Modified food starch, fructose, dextrose, glucose, cottonseed oil. I don't know about you, but when's the last time you served your family a bowl of cottonseed for breakfast, lunch, or dinner? Canola oil, which was originally called rapeseed oil. I wonder why they had to change the name, because they didn't want to alarm you with the word rape. Isolates isoflavones, starch, and vegetables in one of, anybody here spot some of their childhood favorites? Of course. I mean, yes, absolutely. A couple of them are what used to be mine. How about your America's breakfast cereals? Studies on a certain cereal showed it decreased a rat's lifespan by 90% if it ate the cereal. The rat would live longer if it ate the box. Higher risk of toxicity and allergies and antibiotic resistant, weaker immune system, cancer. Don't let your children be a lab rat. Wow. Foods we eat in America that are banned in other countries around the world. I'm just going to take one of them, which is eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Want to take the drink right there, which is a standard that you see on every single field in America when you're playing soccer, when you're playing football, and and it's a drink, Gatorade, that was actually developed by the Gator professor. And it just was a group of electrolytes, but electrolytes don't taste that well. So they took that formula, mixed all kinds of so the screen got cut. Okay, did the screen get cut? Can y'all see my screen? Okay, it does say that the internet. Okay, can you see it now?
No.
Okay, all right, let me stop share and go back in and reshare because my internet gets disrupted, and when it does, all right, can you? Okay, great. Okay, so Gatorade. Well, Gatorade has a rocket fuel in it, and it's been banned in Europe. And the original creator of Gatorade is appalled that it's being given and advertised by all the big sports stars. He's appalled, thinking that our children are putting this in their gut, in their stomachs. Oh my goodness. So as we look at some of these foods, I'm just going to take one, which is a lot of our salmon is farm raised. So they actually put red dyes in the salmon. They want them genetically modified, so they're all the same size. So their packing all fits the same size, the one little square. And a lot of countries will not accept genetically modified fish. So when you go to the market, always make sure it is wild caught fish. And I'll just move right along because it's a lot of information there. And tomatoes, again, is coated with this beeswax, petroleum, shellac, and apples also. So we have to peel our tomatoes and we have to peel our apples because of this coating that is on them, because you cannot wash it off. Now, there was one time where I got boiling water. I wrapped the apple in the green and I poured a boiling water over the apple and it did peel off, but I don't want to have to do that to every single apple. So especially if you're juicing, this is real important because you're concentrating that juice and you don't want to concentrate this shellac based petroleum wax into your juice. So, oh my goodness. So tomato and apples soaked in wax, not only apples, but cucumbers, bell peppers, eggplants, potatoes. Some of them will come off with our LDC. It's a little more of a light duty cleaner, but it's a stronger, has coconut in it, and it actually is stronger for actually getting the that coating off. Peaches, passion fruits, tomatoes, and melons. So everything gets a wash of LDC or green in my house to coming into my house, and some of them has to be peeled because of the nature of how strong the coating is. Also, everybody's gone to using hand sanitizers. And I noticed everywhere we used to go the past 48 months, everybody's got a pump of hand sanitizer at the door, or hand sanitizer at the cash register, or hand sanitizer at the restaurant, in the bathrooms, at the door, at the table. Everybody's dousing up with toxins, sodium lauryl sulfate. Also, it has the measure of vodka in it that is enormous. So you're looking at what it says. If you swallow it, that call poison control. Well, your skin actually is an organ, and it absorbs it, and it goes straight into your bloodstream. It doesn't even pass through your gut to try to filter out the toxins and go through your liver. It's going straight into your bloodstream and straight into your brain within seconds. That's why they banned hand sanitizers in prison. They banned hand sanitizers in some of the schools because it was causing epileptic reactions in the brains of children to use this. All right, hand sanitizer. A typical 2-ounce bottle of hand sanitizer has the same amount of ethanol as 4 shots of vodka. So they were getting drunk in the prisons on hand sanitizer. A 90-proof bottle of bourbon has 45% alcohol in it. Neurotoxicity, skin irritation, alcohol poisoning damages liver and blood, causes tumors, damages sex hormones in children. Same alcohol content as vodka. Oh my goodness. Everywhere you go, you still see it. So, drop a little line, to tell people, are you getting drunk today, as they pump their hand sanitizer all over their hands? Your liver, test out your liver. Is your liver happy? No. Dangers of taking prenatal vitamins, birth defects. What? Prenatal vitamins? Excuse me. Here's a study that was done on prenatal vitamins showing birth defects and menstrual abnormalities, hair loss, nausea, irritability, inadequate potency, hard to digest, and missing all kinds of nutrients that are actually necessary. So they're made with synthetic petroleum. They're made with synthetic vitamins, and actually causing danger. So here's the dangers of taking synthetic prenatal vitamins. In 1995, the New England Journal of Medicine published a study on this, saying 22,748 pregnant women were given a synthetic vitamin A. After 4 years, it was stopped because of the 240% increase in birth defects and a 400% increase in birth defects with women taking 20,000 units. Wow. Synthetic versus human whole food nutrition. Big difference. One will harm you, one will help you. Birth defects. Oh my goodness. Poor quality, missing nutrients. How about diapers? Diapers that contain hormones in them. What is the active ingredient? Is dioxins and sodium polyacrylate. Liquid absorbers linked to or have caused the following toxic responses in the body: cancer, infertility, asthma, hormone problems, developmental cognitive issues, suppressed immune system, diabetes, endometriosis, allergy, chemical burns. Are we depressed yet? I told you it's going to be a hard, heavy hit in the very beginning. Before we get to now God's Farmacy, Farmacy. So can you see why we're in trouble today in America? Can you see why we need what we're sharing here tonight? Can you see why we need to be linking arms with the right group at the right time? Because we've got solutions to help people. And we've got the right solutions at the right time. So let's take a look at, what does God's Farmacy look like? Wow. Dirty Dozen Clean 15, snap a picture. This is the latest of the top dirty dozen, meaning you need to buy with that organic seal we talked about. The Clean 15, you can buy with a 3 or a 4. Know your farmer and make sure you wash it off with your green or your LDC, except for the what was it? Sweet corn, to make sure that is organic. The sweet corn has to be organic. So you see the top toxin. I had somebody that snapped a picture, bought some strawberries down in Sarasota area at a Publix, and on the package it said grown in Kathleen, Florida. So you know the strawberry farms that are down there on Socrum Loop headed north, those were organic strawberries. That was just a month ago. I mean, they've plowed them all up, you know, once it was finished. I said, well, that's very interesting.
On the corner of Campbell Road?
No, as you go out and take the turn, Kathleen.
Oh.
Yeah, right there. Kathleen Road, the packing house, and back of that, right in the curb to the left and to the right, were all strawberries.
Right.
That's where they were grown.
Used to be a peach farm.
Used to be a nectarine or
Peach.
yeah,
Peaches.
peaches. You're right. The little Kathleen peaches. You're right. You're right. Yes. So in other words, the Dirty Dozen you need to buy with an organic seal, because they can actually put the poison systemically that you cannot wash it off. So next is celery. Wow, celery. Celery has an enormous benefit to it because it looks just like the bones. Since I injured my foot, I've been drinking celery juice every single day, fresh, organic celery juice every day. They have celery, they have mineral salts in celery they've never even discovered before. They haven't even discovered the amount of mineral that is in a simple celery that God put within a celery. Amazing. It reduces inflammation, full of electrolytes. It's an antioxidant, and it helps feed good gut bacteria in the digestive tract, and it's a natural diuretic. Celery looks like the bone and specifically targets bone strength. The bones are 23% sodium, and celery is 23% sodium. Not enough sodium. Guess what your body will do if you don't give it enough sodium? It'll steal from your bones, and then it'll leave you with weak bones. It will increase immunity, decrease blood pressure, fights irregular cell reproduction. You know what that is, the C word. Mineral salts, and a cardio support is celery. So start using celery, organic celery, as a great source of snack. Put cream cheese on it, put almond butter on it. Find creative ways of putting maybe a little bit of protein, cashew butter, almond butter, pecan butter, whatever. Just not peanut butter. Because I didn't talk about the peanut butter for the Georgia people. But it is and don't use this spray can of whiz on it, please. But a natural food source on your celery. How about carrots? Carrots looks just like the human eye, and your highest intensity for vitamin A is in your ear, nose, and throat, and in your eyes. It supports weight loss because of the fiber in carrots, heart health, cancer prevention, better digestion, healthy eyes, all of those things because of the vitamin A, actually the beta carotene that is in the carrot. But it isn't amazing that our Creator made these vegetables to look just like the part of the human body that is loaded with nutrition for resources. How about strokes and anti-aging and skin? Beta carotene is very, very powerful for skin. How about tomatoes? It has 4 chambers, just like the heart has 4 chambers in it. Do you know that the genetically modified tomato has 5?
Of course,
Of course, an added.
gonna make it
And-
better.
Oh, yeah. Inhibits cancer, health, heart health, anti-inflammatory, reduces migraines, heart health. Tomatoes. Tomatoes has 4 chambers that resemble the 4 chambers loaded with lycopene, pancreatic health, prostate health, colon health, eye health, blood thinners, naturally, migraines, blood sugar stabilizers are in tomatoes. And tomatoes, one of the vegetables you can cook and the nutrient gets stronger. This is why when we have tomatoes in here, by the way, oh my goodness, I take them home and I make a wonderful my own tomato paste or sauce, because when you cook it, it makes the lycopene and the lutein stronger. Amazing benefits. How about the broccoli? Isn't it amazing that a close-up look of broccoli actually resembles cancer, breast cancer? And yet when we talked about the power of the cruciferous, well, they've done research based upon the Neolife's cruciferous vegetable nutrient formula called cruciferous from Neolife, using the Southern Cancer Research Institute, showing that the cruciferous actually kicks off the artificial synthetic hormone from the cell receptor and reestablishes a healthy cell, turns a irregular cell into a regular cell. It showed that. Our cruciferous. Quite amazing. Quite amazing. And here you see that hormone remediated type cancers are, whether it's the lining of the lungs, lining of the stomach, lining of the intestines, lining of the womb, lining of the breast, lining of the prostate, it's all the same similar tissue that's being attacked. So it's high in fiber, and broccoli looks like a cluster of cancer cells. And right here it is, U.S. National Cancer Institute team of scientists found that consuming more than 1 serving of cruciferous vegetables a week reduces your risk of cancer. Remember, I said one of our cruciferous is equivalent to you consuming 11 cabbages. Protect against sun damage, eye health, heart health, blood pressure, bone health. It's rich in vitamins and rich in minerals, that broccoli is. Broccoli is probably the #1 irregular cell cancer fighter vegetable that nature created for us. High in vitamin C, rich in antioxidants is your citrus vegetables, which looks just like the mammary gland. Amazing. Stomach health, boost immunity. Oh my. Citrus, oranges, grapefruit, and other citrus fruits resembling mammary glands. Citrus keep the lymph glands moving. Where are most all of your lymph glands? Around this area right in here. When they get clogged, then that causes mammary gland replication, tissue replication issues. It helps with irregular cell reproduction, respiratory health, boost immunity, antioxidants, potassium, anti-inflammatory, antiviral, and digestion. Remember, we say don't drink the orange juice, eat the orange, eat the grapefruit, eat the only time that I recommend to eat just a juice is in a lemon or a lime, which, remember, citrus is alkaline. Citrus is alkaline. So citrus will actually alkaline the body. Even though it's acidic in nature, once it gets into the stomach, it actually it raises the hydrochloric acid levels in the stomach, and then it goes into the bloodstream and alkalines the rest of the body. Is quite amazing. And that's why I start every day with a dose of lemon juice, fresh lemon juice. How about the kidney bean? Looks just like the human kidney. Amazing. Helps kidneys strengthen bones, filters your bloodstream, healthy heart, stabilizes blood sugar. This is one of the reasons why Hispanics eat a lot of kidney beans, because they're higher in fiber than your other beans. And so it has a less of a glucose hit in the body because it has higher in the fiber, but it has a lot of nutrition in it too. The kidney beans benefits, high in vitamins and minerals, detoxifies the blood, and again, high in fiber is the kidney beans. How about grapes? And we're talking about the dark colored grapes, talking about the purple grapes and the dark colored grapes, not the green grapes. When you go in the produce department, leave the green grapes alone. Choose only the dark colored grapes. The reason being is because the dark colored grapes have that resveratrol, the polyphenol, polynutrients that actually is an antioxidant. It boosts immune system, helps you fight irregular cell reproduction, improves asthma symptoms, and relieves constipation. Why? Because what you're looking at here is an alveoli of a lung. Right here is an alveoli of a lung. Amazing. Grapes resembles the alveoli of the lungs, and alveoli are grape-like bunches of tiny little air sacs deep within the lungs. Because of its nutrient resveratrol, it is known to help support the body. Lung, irregular cell reproduction, emphysema, heart health, urinary tract and kidneys, Alzheimer's, asthma, brain fog, immunity, constipation. Resveratrol is very, very, very potent in these areas. Can anybody name for me some of the formulas that Neolife has that has resveratrol in it?
Right.
The tray. All right, Annie, you get a big star. Make sure you get a piece of cake up here. Yes, our tray essence is full of resveratrol. Absolutely.
Probably our flavonoids too, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Deborah, you get another piece of cake. Remember. All right. Yay. Yes. Our flavonoids is our polyphenols, has resveratrol in it. Yes. Very good. All right. Figs. When I went last month up to Georgia with my daughter, she has a fig tree and she had harvested all these figs. And so me and my granddaughter made some cookies made with figs. And then she had all this bunches of figs, and I pigged out on figs. I love figs. And notice that figs is full of seeds. What's in the testes of a man is full of seeds. So this actually looks, they grow in pairs and they have rich nutrients that actually support male health hormones. Rich in beta carotene, high in potassium, controls blood pressure, and aids in weight loss. Yes, so figs are full of seeds. They hang in twos. When they grow, figs increase the male sperm. Oh my goodness. And support prostate health. Helps support heart, blood sugar, brain, digestion. It is great. It's a great source of fiber, by the way, for digestion and for even fatigue. So it's a hormone boost. Oh my goodness, figs. So grow you a fig tree. How about the sweet potato? Looks just like what? The pancreas, and then the ginger looks like the gallbladder. So you have the pancreas and then you have the gallbladder going on here. And so the sweet potato actually has nutrients that help the pancreas, and we're going to talk about those. And the ginger has nutrients that helps with the gallbladder. So let's take a look at them. The sweet potato and the ginger. Sweet potato looks like the pancreas, high in beta carotene, helps with balancing blood sugar. What's the biggest hit in the pancreas is when you're spiking the blood sugar all the time, and it burdens the pancreas. We have a spike of pancreatic cancer today in America that breaks my heart. Digestion, irregular cell reproduction, inflammation, and ginger looks like the stomach and aids in gallbladder health. Digestion looks like the stomach, not the gallbladder, the stomach. Digestion, motion sickness, calms the stomach, anti-inflammatory, antioxidants, and fights irregular cells, irregular cell reproduction in the body is ginger. There is a detox drink that I like to shred a fun size of ginger in, because a little bit of ginger on your fresh vegetables is great. A little bit of shredded ginger in your drinks and your water is absolutely great. Any way you can get that ginger in, the ginger is going to help that stomach, going to help the digestion. How about olives and avocados and female health? Right here, you have your ovaries, your uterus. Actually, avocados and olives look like an ovary and helps with hormone health, heart health. It's anti-inflammatory and antioxidant. Avocados resemble the uterus and takes 9 months to grow. Isn't that amazing? Heart benefits to the womb, cervix, antioxidants, source of folic acid. And folic acid is major when it comes to hormone health. Oh my goodness. How about nut brain power? You ever called it a nut brain? You ever been called a nut brain or a nut house? That's good. That means you got good fats going to the brain. Omegas, curbs appetite, feeds good gut bacteria. Oh my goodness, is the walnut. Looks just like the brain. A handful of walnuts every single day is going to help that balance ratio of omega-6 and omega-3s, omega-6 and omega-3s, because it has that healthy balance of omega-6s and omega-3s. Walnuts help with, it has a left, notice how it has a left hemisphere and a right hemisphere. Has the same folds and wrinkles like the brain. Dementia breaks down the protein plaques associated with dementia. Heart, constipation, blood sugar, bone health, full of minerals. Walnuts are full of minerals, good fats, fetal brain development, anti-inflammatory, and will boost immunity. Amazing. The walnuts. Spread a little walnuts onto your salads, put it on, grind it up, mill it up, fold it up, put it in I put it in a handful in my shake and grind it up with my Vitamix for my shakes. How about cabbage? We talked again about cruciferous vegetables. Heals ulcers, cancer prevention, aids in digestive systems, powerful antioxidant. Oh my goodness. They actually went in and did experiment in a prison where most of the men had stomach ulcers. And they showed that when they gave them fresh cabbage juice, it cured all their stomach ulcers. Again, one cruciferous from Neolife is equivalent to consuming 11 cabbages. So a red cabbage, when you eat cabbage, try to incorporate the red, because the dark pigmentation is going to have your powerful nutrients in it. Great detox for the gut and brain. Again, cruciferous family, flavonoids, reduce inflammation, fights bacteria, irregular cell fighter, heart health, digestion, stomach ulcers, nerves, calms your nerves, immunity, eyes, weight management, and a powerful, again, antioxidant. Isn't God's pharmacy beautiful? Isn't God's pharmacy amazing? And we always tell people you can't eat perfect all the time. So we tell you to do the 20-80 rule. That's our strive to do 20-80 rule. 80% of the time, strive to eat fresh, whole human foods. And then your body can offset the damage of the 20% of the time, but your body cannot endure the flip side. 80% of the time that you're eating the fast foods, packaged foods, processed foods, and a little bit of fresh organic fruits and vegetables. I'm going to stop there because I have wore you all out already. And I will continue on next Thursday, the class, to continue on this, but your time and attention is important. Has anybody learned anything here tonight?
Oh, yeah.
Woo-hoo!
Yes.
All right. All right. So I am going to actually stop the recording and then we'll continue part 2 next